this does are your artworks, are you making editions? For example, if you were making editions of certain works like a printmaker, and if there were fluctuations in the editions, set one became
Yeah, no, my work is exactly the opposite of that. I'm not making editions. These are individual pieces which are never going to be repeated.
Okay.
And so I don't have that problem. I'm just saying that I'm like, when we are talking about dyeing being an alchemy, it basically is a magical portion of various things which can be affected by, like, further affected by other factors.
Sure.
Even like where the dye has been grown and what water has sort of been used to cultivate it. Like if yeah.
Where do you buy the dye from?
So a lot of time I try to source it from nature and not buy it, like get it from waste, like it's like wasted resources.
Explain.
So like, okay, again talking
Please.
about
Yeah.
11 months that I was doing a project in Germany in a small town called Braunschweig, which is in the state of Lower Saxony. I dyed 100 meters of silk using the resources, the natural resources I found within a 100-meter radius of where I was living, my studio and my living space.
Nice. Okay.
So that means that I look at what is fallen on the floor below trees. So in the campus that we were living, there were a couple of, or actually there were 3 walnut trees, and walnut dyes are very well known. Even in India, like in Kashmir, in the north, in Himachal, they use walnut as the rind, the green rind of the walnut is used as a dye because it very easily stains even your fingers if you try to open it up. Again, the process of oxidation is responsible for that. So yeah.
You're such a nerd again.
So for example, there was the walnut, then there were acorns, oak trees. Then there was a florist in the vicinity who was throwing away piles and piles of rose leaves every day in a particular season. So this work was also about seasons, and it was about a documentation of the immediate environment that I was in, and it was almost like a map, and like a dye map or an ecological map of those 100 meters.
Like a geological
of what I found.
Beautiful, yeah. But how do you and you locked it on this 100-meter silk strip?
So it was not 100-meter silk. It was pieces. It was in pieces. So like it would be like 10 meters, 15 meters, variable pieces. But in total, I dyed 100 meters of silk while I was there.
Let me ask
using all this material.
Let me ask you a question, contemporary art question. What is all this? See, somebody who's dyeing their own clothes, right? Like as a hobby artist, for example, someone who makes batik and all, right? They look at it as a hobby. I understand you've explained your practice. Just for a larger audience, can you get into what does all this mean? You've just explained it, but can you, in a way, tell me why it's important to you specifically to have this process of yours?
Why is it important? It's important at various levels because it's connected to where I live, what I'm doing, what I'm eating. It's literally what I do with my life, how I spend my time on this planet. It has something to do with that. And I know it doesn't immediately add up when I say that, like how am I spending my time on this planet? But literally I spent 11 months walking around this 100-meter radius, looking and identifying plants. So that is the process that goes behind the artwork. When you look at the artwork, you just see a bunch of silk that is suspended from the ceiling.
Sure.
And it's a lot of silk. 100 meters is not a small quantity. So you see this colorful silk suspended, together from the ceiling and flowing in all directions. And but what has gone behind it? What has gone, like 11 months of research? I arrive at this place that I have never been to before. I'd never been to Europe before. I've never been to Germany before. And I have of course, in general what kind of trees and plants grow at that altitude or in that region.
Yeah.
But then you arrive in the month of January and it's bare. Everything is bare. All the trees are bare. There's not a single leaf on any tree.
Yeah.
And so what do you do? Like, how do you, and if you work, if you know that this is what you're going to work with and you cannot even right now identify a single tree
Yeah.
and there are no plants growing because it's so cold, then what do you do? So then I start looking at the floor. I start looking at what I can find on the ground.
I like the
So
way
I'm literally doing that.
I like the way you manifest your sensitivity. In a way, it's like you actually are using your creative ideas to make a mark. This is an act of mark making. It's in your
Yes.
way. In your way. I
Yes,
like
it is, definitely.